Hey guys, it's Scott Payne from PM Master Prep. In this video, we're going to cover the role of the project manager. Now, this is a really important topic. You've got to nail down how you understand how the perspective and the role that the project manager takes directly affects the project's outcome. There's going to be a ton of questions related to the role of the project manager, so we have to get this concept nailed down. All right, so what I'm going to cover in this class is the core competencies. You're going to learn the 3 core competencies and all the different leadership styles that a project manager could have. The second thing is we're going to cover project integration and tailoring. These are really important topics. You've got to learn these. You've got to be proficient in this, and it's really going to help you answer the PMP questions. The third thing is you've got to decode the difference between a life cycle and a phase. Now, you ask yourself right now, do you know the difference between a project life cycle and a project phase? Because you have to know the difference between those two to succeed on the PMP exam. So let's get started into the details. All right. So the project manager's core competencies as defined by PMI. So let's talk about it. There are 3 competencies. And if we see this triangle right here, there's a technical project management competency, there's a leadership competency, and there's a strategic and business management competency. You've got to know those 3. Those 3 sides of the triangle have to be burned into your brain. All right. So the technical project management competency, those are the skills. That's like the details on the nuts and bolts on how to run projects. So how to run the knowledge areas, how to tailor a project that we'll talk about, how to run the individual steps and processes, all the inputs and outputs. So that's the nuts and bolts, like we said. That's how a robot would run it. So we have to know those kind of details, right? So that's technical project management. Now, let's think about what we really need to run a project. It's not just what the inputs and outputs are or what processes we use. Those are super important, but we also need to exude a certain amount of leadership. So we have to guide and motivate our team through complicated situations. We have to build coalitions. We have to learn to negotiate, have some project resilience built into our problems, and we have to learn to engage people, to learn how to problem solve. So that leadership competency, that's a really big one to take us from just technical experts. That's individual contributor land, but we need to know that stuff as a project manager and on the PMP exam. But we also need to be in a good leadership position. And that is a competency that we have to embolden and we have to see on the PMP exam. And the third one is the strategic and business management. In all these projects and all these questions that we see, everybody has to, the reason why we're doing our projects is to serve a need, a strategic and business need. So we have to have the mind, the core competency to focus on the strategic and business management. And that's going to help us navigate the project to continually support the strategic objectives of the company. We always want to be in alignment to that. So anytime we have questions on the exam, we want to reference these things when we think about the type of project manager that's leading these projects. They're technically competent, they have great leadership, and they always think about the strategic and the business management. They're staying aligned with the needs of the company, okay? And they're bringing in organizational awareness, and they're making the right decisions. So PMI has laid out this triangle, these competencies to guide us, and then we're going to use that in our normal lives. And also there's going to be questions related to these 3 things. So know these, be able to see them in your head, and be able to reference them on the exam. As we move forward, there are different leadership styles. So we said the core competency, leadership is a key thing. Now let's think about the different kind of leaders. Everyone's had different bosses and leaders, and they've been good ones and bad ones, and they've all operated in different ways. So there are different styles that we can talk about. And the PMI or PMBOK lays out these styles. First of all, there's a laissez-faire. That's a more relaxed individual who's hands-off, and he allows the team to make their own decisions. Now, as I'm talking about this, I'm not providing judgment. I'm just stating facts. That's a style, a laissez-faire style. And hands-off leader, right? So you could see some questions where they might say, hey, this leader is acting in this way where he's allowing the team to make certain decisions on their own. He only gets called in. He says, hey, I'm here if you need me, but only call me in when you want me to give you help. That would be a laissez-faire leader. And there may be a question related to that. The next time are transactional. And those are just the facts, Bam. Those are facts and results focused leaders. They're really tied up in the numbers. They're really tied up in the details, in the kind of charts and graphs. They might manage by exception. They might manage by numbers. Those are the factual based transactional leaders that we're talking about. The third type is my favorite personal type of leadership style. It's servant leadership style. That's what I'm trying to embody. That's what the people that I follow. Lean is big in servant leadership. So what servant leadership's all about is putting others first to accomplish our goals. You say as a servant leader that if you can put others in a position to succeed and support them, then that's how we're going to achieve our goals. So servant leaders are focused on putting others first. They put relationships and they put development as keys to help us achieve our goals. So that's the mechanism they use to help us succeed. So I implore you, look into servant leadership and really embody that. It's a really, really great thing. And you'll find questions on the exam that might focus on servant leadership. So be able to identify it. That's the thing as we go through these, you want to be able to identify it. When someone lays it out to say, hey, that's a laissez-faire leader. That's a transactional leader. That's a servant leader. Or maybe it's a transformational leader. Now, these leaders are the people that inspire through motivation and encourage innovation. So when I think of a transformational leader, I'll think of someone like Tony Robbins pops in my head, right? So he's the guy out there that's leading the charge, has inspirational motivation, and is getting you to be the best person that you can be. So this transformational leader is helping, like the word said, make a transformation. So think of a person, think of that it's transformational and help you organize and see those things when you're getting a question and they're asking, what type of leader is this? So transformational. The next type is charismatic. So charismatic are a lot like transformational, but they're more high energy. They're extremely confident. And they hold strong convictions, okay? So it's a little bit different from transformational, but it's more focused on results, this charismatic leader, okay? And so the next thing is interactional. That's a hard one for me to say. And interactional, the way to think about this is it's a combination of transformational, charismatic, and transactional. So it's putting the best of all of those things together to try to lead through motivation, high energy, but still using the facts. So that's a really interesting combination, okay? So those are the 6 types of leadership styles. And your goal on the PMP exam and in life is to be able to identify which kind of leaders you're seeing in these questions. And then they may ask you, hey, if you have this kind of leader, what would be the response that they would provide? So think through how these people would act in different situations. All right, so we're going to make the transition from leadership to project integration. Now, project integration is a really, really important topic. It's paramount to understand through the entire project and through the entire PMBOK. Okay, so success in these projects and success in the PMP exam is really keyed on understanding project integration. So what integration means is it is the project manager's responsibility to integrate all the knowledge areas, all the teams, all the processes together to put that glue and make sure all the trains line up and link together and everything works together in a nice cohesive environment. That is the project manager's key responsibility to link everything together, and it is the foundation of project management and the project management plan. Now, if you think about the table from knowledge areas and process groups, the top one, what's the top knowledge area? The top knowledge area is project integration management, and it has processes in every single one of the process groups. So that would lead you to believe that it's pretty important. It's really, really important because that is what links everything together. So that is really, really the foundation that's going to drive us to success. And it is its own distinct knowledge area. It focuses on the interrelation between all the different knowledge areas. And the one thing I want you to understand is this process of bringing things together through project integration, it's iterative. So as you go through the project, you might have to jump back and go forward and bring other things in and readdress processes. So integration talks about the interconnectedness and the iterative nature of the process. And that, as a project manager, is really your role, right? It's not to be the technical expert all the time. It's to really make sure that the right people are in the room, the right people are talking, the right decisions are being made, and the right interactions are happening. And so that is all about project integration. So really on the exam, they focus heavily on integration. And a lot of things happen in the project integration knowledge area that we'll cover in that specific video. It's really a great video. You should check it out. All right, so tailoring. It's different than integration, but it's equally important. So the premise behind tailoring is every project is unique. Every project's different. So why would you follow the exact same process in every project? Now we go through the same process groups, from integration or initiation to closing, right? But within each process, we might handle different processes. Within each project, we might handle different processes a little bit different based on the type of project and the situation that we're facing. So in order to do that, a project manager must tailor the processes and approaches to succeed in the face of unique constraints and opportunities. So you're going to tailor each project to design the project lifecycle to fit what's needed by the client. And then you're going to select the correct mix of project processes based on logic. And then you're going to use the right tools and techniques to fit the needs of each process, right? And so you're not going to just follow the letter of the law of saying, hey, this input, output, and tools and techniques chart says I must use all these things. That doesn't make any sense. You're going to pick the things that are germane and relevant to that situation and use those tools. We only use things that work. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to tailor the project to the situation that's faced. And so on the PMP exam, they'll ask you, what should the project manager do? A lot of times the answer is tailor the project. Okay. And so in tailoring, you want to leverage the assistance outside. It's not all on you as the project manager or the person in this exam that we're postulating out. We leverage the project team to help understand how we tailor, or the sponsor or the PMO. All the different types of PMOs could help in understanding what we tailor to. And then we might use experts in the organization, and we also might use best practices or different examples. So tailoring as well as integration are two important, essential concepts that we have to understand, and they define how we proceed on projects. We're always trying to integrate, and we're always trying to tailor to uniquely fit the situation present. And so, okay, let's talk about the design of projects. Now I want to talk about the project life cycle. Okay, so you need to understand what the project life cycle is. If we look at the diagram on the right side of the page, so that defines the project life cycle, and this is drawn from the PMBOK. So the project manager must select the right project life cycle approach that best meets the needs of the organization. Okay, and so there's two different life cycles that we want to talk about. There's predictive and there's agile or adaptive. Okay, and predictive is the waterfall. That's the traditional method of project management. And so that says that at the beginning of a project, the total scope, time, and cost are defined totally and in depth, and they're defined very, very early. And all changes are managed very, very carefully as we go forth. So right when we start the project, we've projected out totally toward the end where we know everything that's going to be done, and that we've, worked out our detailed plans and our costing and everything. When I think about this, I think about building a bridge. It's very, very difficult to build a bridge in an adaptive or agile way. You kind of got to know where the trusses need to be. You got to know how to build this bridge, where the stress is and where the materials are. So you're going to have to build a bridge in a waterfall manner, right? The second method is an adaptive or agile method. And so that could be, it comes along gradually, right? And so there's two different ways to do this. There's an iterative approach where they define the scope early, and then the time and cost are modified as the project evolves. So it's a little bit different. It's more iterative, okay? And so what happens is there's a series of repeated cycles that progressively add function. Now, you don't need to be an expert on adaptive or agile practices on the PMP exam. There's not a lot of questions on this, okay? But what you do need to know is that what an iterative project looks like or feels like, and how it's different than waterfall. Okay, that's basically the depth of information that we need to know in this. We don't need to understand or have worked in this environment before, but we do need to know how it's different than waterfall. And it's different in the way in which we plan and we operate, right? And so we have iterative and we also have incremental, which is a little bit different. And in incremental projects, a series of iterations are planned out to add functionality at a predetermined time frames. Okay, so it's a little bit different. So when we think about the life cycle, we have to understand that there's a product life cycle and a project life cycle. Okay, so let's think about anything that's made. I'm going to make something up. Hey, a box of cereal. Okay, from the initiation of the idea or the concept, we're going to make a new breakfast cereal. Isn't this great? Let's do some market research. Let's plan it out. All the way till the end of the use of the breakfast cereal. It's no longer selling. We're going to close it down. That's the product life cycle. So that can extend a long time, years and years and years, right? And so from concept to retirement, that's a product life cycle. But within the product life cycle, there can be a project life cycle. And that has a defined length. And that's the defined length of the actual project to do something, to create the cereal. Okay. And so in creating the cereal, it could be starting the project, like we'll use the example on the page here, organizing and preparing, carrying out the work. Maybe it's like building the design of the box, putting the things together, setting up the production lines, those things, and then ending the project. Hey, we have everything set up. It's done. That's the end of the project. So that is the project life cycle. The product life cycle remains running, but the project life cycle is different. So we're going to frame up the project life cycle as a defined beginning and end of the actual project, right? All right, but then within the project life cycle, there can be phases. So the phases in this example that's highlighted in red, this total life cycle from beginning to end is broken up into distinct phases, each with a distinct deliverable or purpose. So in this example, the first phase, I'll highlight it, is starting the project. So that is one phase. And you see that there's a breakup here. There's a line right here, and we'll talk about that in a second. The second phase is organizing and preparing, and you see the third phase and the fourth phase. So each phase is put into the life cycle. Now, let's look at this diagram. Within each phase, you're going to operate all of the process groups from initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. So you're going to do that in this phase, all the way through. So you see how this breaks out, that the top line is the project life cycle, which breaks out into different phases. And then within each phase, you go through the same initiating through closing. So let's think about this. You could go through the first one and say, hey, we have to initiate the project, work the project, monitor, and then close. And then boom, you're back to the same thing. Hey, we have to initiate the next phase. So you need to understand that dynamic as it rolls down. And projects can have multiple phases, as we've shown here, but all the process groups are completed within each phase. That's really, really key. Okay, and so each phase, remember, produces a deliverable. There's a reason why we're doing the phase, and that's what helps break it up. And so the phase completion, and that's signified by this little dotted line right here and this little star or diamond, is marked by a phase gate. So that's a point when we finish this phase, it's a predetermined, we know we're going to stop at that point, right? And we're going to have a decision. We're going to have a conversation about what happens. And that's a phase gate. That's a go or no go situation where we evaluate our progress at this point and decide, do we want to leap into the next phase? So that's what that means. Each phase is confirmed by a phase gate where we're evaluating the completion of the previous phase and we're deciding whether we go forth. All right, so let's talk about these phase gates. So phase gate reviews are held at the end of each project phase, like we talked about, to provide the opportunity to evaluate the actual versus the expected progress of that phase. Now, a lot of times, like we said, go or no-go decisions are rendered. Now, do we go on to the next phase? Do we just end the project here? Do we modify the next phase? We learned some things during this. Things didn't go as planned or they went better as planned, and we're going to expand. So, or do we want to go back and repeat the phase? So it's really, really key that we not jump over these phase gates. And you will have questions that talk about phase gates. Maybe there was a project manager that didn't abide by the phase gate. Maybe you want to understand what the purpose of the phase gate is. So really try to internalize why we're doing these and the importance of having phase gates. Now, there's other names for phase gates. It might be a stage gate, a kill point, a phase exit. These are different terms, but it means the same thing. It means where we're going to say go or no go. We're going to reflect on what happened. We're going to evaluate it, and we're going to make a decision as we go forth. Okay, so now as we come to the end, I want to review what we've learned in this video. We've been talking about the role of the project manager, and we went deeper into phases and life cycles and gate reviews. We need to summarize what we've done. All right, so we talked about the 3 core competencies of project manager. And remember, they're technical project management, our leadership, and our strategic and business management. That's the triangle. Remember that triangle? And then we had the 6 leadership styles. And in the 6 leadership styles, what you want to be able to do in the exam is to identify them and to understand how those people would run projects. They probably run projects differently, and you want to be able to recognize that. Okay, and so then we really, really want to understand and really want to have you guys appreciate the importance of project integration. Like we said, it's its own knowledge area. It's very, very important. And that is the primary role of the project manager, to bring everything together, to be that glue, to make sure the right people are in the room, the right decisions are being made, the right processes are being held. And that is what we do. And so additionally, that project manager in the integration process is tailoring the project. He or she is evaluating the project to say, I need to tailor the processes that are done, in what order, what process, how they're done, to really fit the exact needs of the real project. So understand tailoring and integration. You will have questions on that in the exam. And then as we went through the difference between a project life cycle and phase, and then how each phase can have all 5 process groups and must have it. And each phase ends with what? A phase gate, right? And so understand that flow from top to bottom. You will have questions on that. So, all right, our next step is to watch the 3rd and the 4th case story video and answer the question. Up to this point, John has gone into his project. He's starting to feel a little overwhelmed, I would say, right? If you haven't watched the videos, go back and watch them. They are really good. They are essential for you to learn. In the 3rd and 4th video, things start to shake up. John is going to reach a crisis. He needs your help. You have to go and watch and ask yourself, what would you do in the situation that John's thrown into? He's going to need your help. Go in there, watch the videos, answer the question. You're going to see me on the other side. We're going to talk about what John did, how it relates to integration and tailoring and life cycles and leadership styles and all these things. So go watch the videos. I'll see you then.